Is that a thumbs up? Okay. Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to the very first ever high school Invent2Prevent final competition and presentation. History is being made here today by having these students with us. My name is Tony Schoo, the CEO and founder of Adventure Partners, and I will be your moderator. On behalf of the Department of Homeland Security, CP3, our colleagues at the McCain Institute, of which we implement the program, Credence Management Solutions, and my team at Adventure Partners, thank you for carving out time to be here today. The students that earn the trip to Washington especially appreciate it. Now, most of the people in the audience are familiar with Invent2Prevent, but for those that are not, it is an experiential project where high school and university students are challenged to create and implement peer-developed initiatives, products, and tools to prevent targeted violence, hate, and extremism. But this is important. These are campaigns that they think are most appropriate to address the growing threats on their campuses and communities. These projects are developed by students, for students, and they are credible, authentic, and believable to the target audiences. CP3 knows it's important to engage young people to be part of the solution in making America safer. So they created an Invent2Prevent as a national student platform to ensure this essential prevention work happens at the local and at the state level. Now, all of this will unfold before your eyes as the top 3 teams that competed this past year from 25 other high schools in 17 states, selected by CP3 to be here today. So joining us are Bob Jones High School in Madison, Alabama, which is west of Huntsville. We have Marysville High School in Marysville, Ohio, which is not too far from Columbus. And then we have Newburyport High School in Massachusetts, which is part of the greater Boston area. The high school students, just raise your hand real quick. We're thrilled you're here. The others are obviously in the green room. Thank you for spending so much of your life working on Invent. I also want to acknowledge the teachers, the advisors, and the chaperones who worked with you as well. So it is now my pleasure and honor to introduce a pre-recorded video from John Tien, Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, who has a keen interest in Invent2Prevent and what young people are doing with prevention strategies in their communities.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Department of Homeland Security. Every day, members of our extraordinary workforce evaluate diverse and dynamic threats and develop solutions to meet them. We focus our energies, talents, skills, and expertise on a broad array of dangers: terrorism, cyber attacks, natural disasters, financial crimes, human smuggling, drug trafficking, and more. And no matter the issue, the responses share common threads: the necessity of preparedness and prevention, the importance of teamwork and creativity, the vital role of invention and innovation. Few areas demand these qualities more than the evolving threat of targeted violence and terrorism. If we needed a reminder of the urgency of this challenge, we simply have to look to the communities of Buffalo and Laguna Woods and Uvalde, and too many others torn apart by vile crimes of hate and horror in recent weeks. And if we want to effectively confront, combat, deter, and defeat these acts, we have to invest in prevention and empower young people and others in our communities with the tools to stop these tragedies from happening in the first place. That is what makes Invent2Prevent unique and essential. This program showcases what it takes to prevent targeted violence and terrorism, the energy, perspective, and voices of our youth, the need to educate, to engage in candid dialogue, to identify problems and find new ways to help your peers solve them. All of you Our finalists have applied your imagination to this critical work. Your projects seek to decrease the likelihood that someone might become violent or slide to radicalization by promoting connectedness, dispelling dis and misinformation, countering recruitment efforts by white supremacists, educating the public about violence perpetrated against LGBTQ+ individuals or the Asian American, Native American, and Pacific Islander communities. Each proposal uses technology to overcome big obstacles, taps into students' ambition and focus, and aims to keep our fellow Americans safe. This is fundamental to our never-ending efforts to safeguard our homeland. This is precisely the kind of thinking required by this moment in history. Your work is what it will take to raise up the next generation of leaders and build a more secure and prosperous nation for every one of us. Thank you for taking part in Invent2Prevent, and congratulations on a job incredibly well done.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Tien. He had hoped to be here. Conflicts prevented that from happening, but we do appreciate him taking time to pre-record that video message for all of us. As far as what's going to happen today, you're going to see the 3 high school teams present their campaigns, their tactics, their strategies, and their outcomes, and that's going to be 12 minutes. After each of the teams is presented for 12 minutes, they will engage with our distinguished judges for 10 minutes, who will be asking specific questions about the program. Afterwards, the judges will exit the room, sequester downstairs for about 15 minutes, where they will review the scorecard, they will make an assessment of the rankings, which we will announce in reverse order to create some suspense. So it'll be 3rd place, 2nd place, and 1st place. And after they come back, we will announce the winners, award prizes. We will have potentially more photos. I'm not sure based upon what we did earlier, but that was the original plan. But then immediately after the presentations, there will be a 1.5-hour social meet and greet, and hopefully more people will be coming in. The students would love to talk to you, approach them, ask questions, ask them what it was like to go through this program. They would like to talk to you. There's also going to be refreshments, which is great. During that 15-minute break while the judges sequestered, we have a special activity prepared. We have Invent2Prevent Collegiate Division podium finishers from the fall 2021 semester, Middlebury Institute for International Studies in Monterey, California, and Howard University here in DC. Those 2 teams have sustained their programs, which means the program ended, but they wanted to keep on going. So DHS CP3 has a program where some of the most innovative prevention programs continue on after the 15-week semester. DHS has a very strong interest in incubating highly innovative prevention campaigns, and at the same time, introduce young people to prevention careers, which is important. And we hope that happens through the Invent2Prevent program. So that'll be an opportunity for the Diverting Hate, which is the Middlebury campaign name, and also the Peace Coalition from Howard to talk about what they have done to keep their campaigns sustained since the program ended. So now, since you know it's going to happen, I would like to introduce our esteemed judges. And I am going to use my type 30 font, so I don't have to put my glasses on. We have, and just if you could just raise your hand, judges, please. Kevin Peters, Associate Director, Policy and Research Section, Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships, DHS. Tracy Ballard Silas, JD Executive Director, Academic Engagement, Office of Partnership and Engagement, Department of Homeland Security. We have Lindsay Burton, Program Manager, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is known as CISA, Department of Homeland Security. Pam Brown, Public Health and Analyst, Policy, Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, who flew up from Atlanta. And I'm also happy to invite and acknowledge Shadrique Johnson, who is actually a former I2P student from Howard University and is in the current I2P sustainment program. We think it is great. Actually, it's pretty cool to have an Invent2Prevent student here who has gone through the program, been on the podium, and has a chance to look at some other campaigns. So judges, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you carving out the time. So with that said, I think it is showtime. Our first team is going to be Bob Jones High School in Madison, Alabama, and the BJ Connect team. That will be first up. And I would also like to acknowledge Melinda Lawson, their faculty member as well. Team is coming from where? Okay, there we go.
Salvatore Ramos, Seung-Hee Cho, John Sawari. These are just a few of many names of school shooters. But a fact that is often overlooked is that these were also students. Students without an adequate support system in a community at school. Hi, my name is Hannah Evans.
I'm Anna Butler.
My name is Optim for Bialzar. And I'm Sawyer Ramesh.
And we are all students from Bob Jones High School in Madison, Alabama, and we created BJ Connect. An often undeclared, yet a very true assumption about these previously mentioned individuals is that they suffered from mental health issues. What caused these mental health issues? No one knows exactly, but we do know that many factors came into play in their actions against many innocent people.
And a common factor amongst these individuals is social isolation. There's a firm link between social isolation and poor mental health. In an article titled Mitigating Social Isolation in Youth, those who are isolated were more prone to accepting messages of radicalization to violence.
And now, with the COVID-19 pandemic and students stuck at home, feelings of social isolation, feelings of social anxiety, feelings of depression have skyrocketed among America's youth. We have an epidemic today, an epidemic of social isolation in American hallways, and the time to take action, the time to act, it is now.
We created Connect, an initiative that uses both online and in-person mediums to mitigate isolation while promoting connectivity within Bob Jones. We also provide resources on our Instagram page. There are 5 main pillars to our BJ Connect project. We want to first encourage connectivity. We also want to communicate with others without social stigmatization. Third, we want to promote mental health resources. Fourth, we want to target radicalization. And fifth, we want to mitigate isolation.
So to find out what our Bob Jones High School students thought were the major issues at our school, our team decided to send out a pre-survey to students to a random stratified sample of our Bob Jones High School students. And these are the results.
Nearly 75%, or 3/4 of those surveyed, said that there were no preventative measures in place to combat targeted violence. In their time of need, there was no one to turn to, no one to help them out.
And 50% of these students felt that this is going on during school hours where we can make the biggest impact.
As these surveys, 30% of students showed that social anxiety was the leading factor of discrimination. This was the least statistic out of all the choices.
So with the results of our pre-survey in, We knew that we wanted to target social isolation. That was the biggest issue at our school. But we weren't sure how we wanted to message our campaign. We didn't want to tell those who felt socially isolated that they were predestined to be America's next extremist. No, that would be an absurd thing to say. Social isolation may be a risk factor for extremism, but it is certainly not causative. So we met with members from the McCain Institute, experts from the McCain Institute, to talk about just that. What should our messaging be? And the biggest takeaway from that meeting was one thing: positive messaging. Not that you are socially isolated, so you are an innately horrible human being who will be an extremist, but that we are here for you. We are here to talk to you. You belong at Bob Jones High School, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
So with this project in mind, we decided that our target audience will be Bob Jones High School students of all ages who are seen as socially isolated from the rest of the student body. We believe with our initiative that if we could connect these students for faculty, students, and administration, that we would ultimately be able to provide them with supportive community. As shown by research by Dr. R. Wood, extremism is positively correlated with both norm deviation and social isolation.
And our secondary audience were those teachers, those students at Bob Jones, who didn't necessarily themselves feel socially isolated, but they could be doing more to reach out to others. They could be doing more to make sure our school had a vibrant community. And through our social media campaign, through our in-person sessions, we made sure to reach the entire student body, not just those who felt isolated, but also our secondary audience. And that takes us to the three main goals for this project. The first one was to prevent social isolation and other feelings of separation at Bob Jones. And how do we do that? Well, by advertising our campaign. We wanted to make sure that every student, every teacher, every member of staff of Bob Jones was aware of what is BJ Connect, what do we do? And we did that with advertisements in person at our school and also virtual flyers on our Instagram page. But also we partnered with nonprofit organizations in our area to take part in a biannual mental health summit. So students, teachers, parents from across the district knew what we were, and what we did. And that takes us to our second point. What did we do? Well, our main goal was to facilitate conversations between students. At our weekly Patriot Path sessions, which was a 1-hour window every single Wednesday at school during school hours, students had the opportunity to sit down, to talk to others, to play the Ask and Tell card game that we developed, and you'll hear about a little later in this presentation. And by playing that card game, they got the opportunity to meet someone they had never seen before, to find something they had in common with a complete stranger. And that's a very powerful thing, something most students don't experience in the everyday classroom. But our third goal was that we wanted to make sure that those 1-hour conversations, they were the beginning of long-term support groups for the students who participated. And how did we do that? We added every participant the option to join a group chat where they could get into contact with who they met at the original session, and they could continue that 1-hour conversation onward. And what did that ensure? It ensured that those 1-hour conversations were not just 1-hour conversations, they were the beginning of friendships, the beginning of connections, the beginning of support groups for every single student who participated in our weekly sessions.
The main facility that we decided to use with BJ Connect is our card game Ask and Tell. The game is designed for groups of 4 people with 5 cards for each person, with either a dare card or a question card, both meant to facilitate conversation and familiarity. With this in mind, we want to create environments where students can get to know each other and thus later create support groups. To combat social barriers and as well as geographical barriers, we also created a Quizlet version of the game so BJ Connect can be played anywhere.
So when do we play Ask and Tell? We play it during Patriot Path. And at our school, it's a once a week for an hour break from school where we sign up for any activity of our choosing and just take a break from our coursework. So we decided to create our own version of Patriot Path, BJ Connect. It's a part of our initiative. And this is where students met, signed up, we played Ask and Tell, and we just built connections with our peers.
A large part of our campaign was also online. On Instagram, we use interactive activities and polls to make sure that our students stayed engaged with the project. One such example of the interactive activity was connecting with kindness. Connecting with kindness is teaching small suggestions every day on what activities they could do to help the community, like complimenting someone on their outfit. These small changes in the beginning make larger changes overall. We also advertise our events on Instagram so students will be in the know-how of when and where the event will be taking place. Also, in the bio of our Instagram, we have our mental health resources in the link tree. Now, in the mental health resources, we have several links that can help students better themselves. Bob Jones extracurricular activities to help them find like-minded people and form further connections. Mental health resources so students will be able to know how to help themselves and what they can do. And a seeking help hotline, which allows students to find help with an expert when they're in trouble.
Now, this exemplary virtual presence that we had over the months of January to May is shown through various metrics, as over 5,000 unique accounts reached our Bob Jones PJ Connect account through posts, profile visits, and reels, which is almost 3 times the student volume population of 1,800 at Bob Jones High School.
To determine the effectiveness of BJ Connect, our team sent out post surveys to all the students that attended our Patriot Path session. As you can see on the board, out of 17 students, 11 students rated our BJ Connect Patriot Path sessions a 4 or a 5 out of 5 in terms of making connections with other students. Another figure that comes into our effectiveness is our Instagram interactions. Again, as you can see on the board, these are examples of the polls and the interactions that are available to students through our Connecting with Kindness program.
So our effectiveness translates to our strength. So having in-person connections with students, especially our underclassmen who had all online school for the first year of high school or first 2 years of high school, we really wanted to help them out and have in-person meetings through our Patriot Path. Our second one was our versatility of Ask and Tell. We have an in-person format, an online format, and this can be played in a small or big group setting, as well as time adaptable. And then having support from our staff, administration, and faculty was key.
So a minor concern we had in the beginning of the semester is, how is this sustainable? How are we, when we're all going to graduate, keep PJ Connect for years to come? And we found out throughout the semester, through support from faculty, administration, and our strong Bob Jones hosted chapter, that we believe we will be able to keep PJ Connect as a viable club for years to come.
So our project is clearly sustainable. We can continue it as is for the foreseeable future, but it's also scalable. We've already heard from middle schools within our district, high schools just outside our district, from teachers who are so enthusiastic to have something like what we have at BJ Connect at their own schools, because in the everyday classroom, you don't have that opportunity to talk to others, to make those connections. When you have that dedicated 1 hour time slot during the day, that's a very, very powerful thing most students do not experience. And if that was something we could roll out to schools across the country, without a doubt, it would help mitigate social isolation, mitigate extremism, and improve mental health outcomes for students nationwide. That is the power of BJ Connect, and that is why it must be scaled.
And it went like.
Salvatore Ramos, Seung-Hee Cho, John Zuari. If these students had the opportunity to be involved with BJ Connect, could their lives have gone a different direction? Could they have had the opportunity to make a positive impact in this world?
History altered.
Lives saved.
BJ Connect.
Judges, I now throw the ball to you to ask questions of the BJ Connect team.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So if I say my name, is there a format to this? I'm not sure, but congratulations. Great job. I love that all of you participated, so thank you. I love your memorization, all of those things, wonderful. question for you, and don't take the questions as being a indication that you've done any less than a good job, okay? How many were actually surveyed? Can you give me a little idea of the population of your school? How many completed, the surveys? Let me know some metrics. I saw 17, I saw a few there, but that's my first question. I have many.
So at the very beginning of the semester in the fall, we sent out a pre-survey. We want to do a 10% randomized sample of the school to get the most representative. So we sent it out to about 250 students because we have around 1,800 students in our grade, or not our grade, our school. And so we did that. And so we had 90 responses out of the 250. And then we went through that, and that was how we chose social isolation. The 17 number you were seeing was our post-survey from our first Patriot Path session. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, great job. This was really, really impressive. I may have missed it, but curious how the number of participants you had at your school, and then can you talk a little bit more about how you encouraged or enticed people to participate in the program itself?
So we had about an average of 10 students through 5 Patriot Path sessions, and we encourage participation through online announcements at our school through the help of our faculty and our administration, as well as we use our Instagram to really push that out. We were in contact with our school Instagram, which advertised through their stories as well. Along with that, we had flyers, and we definitely had HOSA as a part of our organization to really push the message of connectiveness. Thank you.
Great job. Really appreciate the feedback and the dialogue we're having. In terms of what you've learned now, having gone through this program and you're here in Washington at the kind of culmination of it, two-part question: what barriers did you encounter? And now, having gone through this program, what strategies would you recommend to yourselves if you go back in time to overcome those barriers?
So one of the barriers that we encountered originally was kind of with the COVID thing. Originally, we wanted to do a tic-tac-toe like game in which instead of like the X's and O's, it would be humans in order to facilitate more familiarity. But I realized it would be too much of a risk factor due to the COVID situation. And so we believe that based on this, in the future, we'll be looking for more accommodating methods, especially for more decades to come, as we believe that we can expand this beyond our school into every high school in the US.
Hi, great job, and really appreciate your interest in this issue. So I have two questions. One, I'll piggyback a little on what you just ended up with in terms of sustainability. You mentioned there's interest in the community and beyond in the program. To what degree are you all able to offer technical assistance, or your school to offer technical assistance for those to actually implement the program? Is that something you've built into the program?
I would say absolutely. Personally, me and Anna, we're graduating, so we won't be at our high school anymore, but the 3 members of our team will stay at Bob Jones. They'll be seniors next year. And of course, it's built into the system. They have all the experience from this year, in addition to our faculty sponsor, Ms. Lawson. And we would get into contact with teachers, with administration at neighboring schools in our district, even outside our district, to make sure we can walk them through that expansion.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned some partnerships or engaging nonprofits in the community. Could you give some examples of who those were, or what type of nonprofits they were?
So Madison City holds a biannual mental health summit called Mental Health Matters, in which they invite multiple sources of mental health assistance in the community to help us deliver our message. And so it's more of a convention where people can come to visit our booth, and we can tell them about our project. Also, in terms of partnerships, we do plan to partner with S2S, which is an organization that allows people from military backgrounds to meet other people since they're moving around a lot. This helps us reach our target audience of people who could be possibly socially isolated.
Hi, and congratulations on a superb presentation. I definitely just wanted to ask a question about the card game that you all have created, or the game. When it comes to the physical production of that, how do you all see that expanding? I believe it's a highly innovative way to facilitate conversation amongst students. So where do you see that going? And do you have ideas for expanding it?
Could you repeat that question, please?
It's very hard to hear, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
If I could just encourage judges really amp up the ball.
Okay.
Thank you.
My apologies. Is this better?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, with the production of your card game, just a quick question of where you see that going, and the scalability of that with having other schools to come in to play it. Did you have any specific goals for that, or maybe different packs or different types of questions or different ways of using that information to facilitate, or that resource rather, to facilitate dialogue among students?
So in terms of our Ask and Tell card game, we created it using flashcards. And so what we used were index cards, and we wrote down questions. I believe that you were handed an example, a couple examples of those questions. So there are dare questions that encourages students to go up and get up and talk to people, as well as other types of questions. May it be, what is your favorite color? Something generic like that, just so you can find some similarities. Unfortunately, we did have a $0 budget, so it was very hard to keep up with the card game. But I know that since we are now finalists, we have that $1,000 at least to actually make it more professional looking. Now, in terms of reaching out and the scalability, our team already came into contact with the middle schools, and our POSA advisor actually reached out and got into contact with Huntsville High School health science teachers. So I think it is definitely no problem when it comes to reaching out and expanding our project to other schools. Another thing I'd like to add onto that is that it's very versatile, since we also have an online format of that game through Quizlet.
I just have one more question. Am I loud enough? Is that okay? Okay, all right, good. So a couple of things, kind of, if you could just tell me a little bit about how you're meeting the needs of the introverts. I know you mentioned a lot of speaking. How are you really bringing them into the fold? And then part B of that is, freshman year versus senior year, they're worlds apart on what they want to discuss. How do you keep it interesting? I don't know your bandwidth of how long you did this exercise, but how are you going to keep it interesting throughout the 4 years? Thank you.
Well, I would say that it was completely stress-free. It was an open environment where anyone could come, meet others. If they at any time felt uncomfortable, we would move them. We would rearrange our groups. It wasn't like you were sitting down with the same person for the entire hour. So we made sure to mix it up, like you said, to make sure that everyone was comfortable and was able to talk in a comfortable manner, whether they were introverts or extroverts or anywhere in between.
Judges, we have time. 2 more questions, please.
Length of time, could you let me know, what was the length of time that you've been running this particular exercise with folks? I know this is summer, so you're obviously not doing it, but when did you start? And then, just kind of giving an idea to, the time of year. I'm sure it was before some of the examples that you've given, in the outset of your presentation.
Right, so in about mid-February, we started our Patriot Path sessions, and then we ended right before May, before AP testing and all that happened, because that's when Patriot Path stopped. So it was about a 2 month span, right, around there. And during the sessions, we gave the 10-minute overview of the game and just, really made it feel very open and like very free in the room. Just give everyone like, you don't have to play, but this is like what we're probably going to be doing. And then we played for maybe 30 minutes, depending on the bigger group of setting. And then it was basically
So, and you may not have been tracking this, but even anecdotally, did kids recruit other kids? Did you find that there was some peer engagement that they did on their own?
So we found out kids did recruit other kids. Often, a lot of socially isolated kids, they may have one or two friends that they feel like they need, and so they're not usually compelled to go alone. So often they'll bring one or two more friends who also may be socially isolated.
Great, another round of applause for DJ Connect. Thank you. Great job, great job. The student's going to switch. Marysville High School is going to mic up. This is a HOSA chapter, and for those that might not be familiar, there are 9 career and technical student organizations. They're called CTSOs. You're familiar with DECA, more than likely, or Skills USA. Well, HOSA is for future health professionals. There are 5,600 chapters in the United States. HOSA executive leadership is delighted that we had 3 HOSA programs. They hope to include many more future health professionals to engage with Invent2Prevent. So with that said, just to share a little bit of information, at the university level, an Invent2Prevent project is typically dropped into an existing class. It sort of owns part of the syllabus, where students can earn anywhere from 30 to 50 to 100% of a grade going through Invent2Prevent. At the high school level, entirely different beast. Most of our 25 programs are either Invent2Prevent clubs. They can be dropped into classes. And we also have independent formations of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students who do it as an independent study. But what's important to all of these, they have an academic advisor or teacher. So there is a steward, there is somebody who is watching over the program. Let me take a look how we're doing. Almost ready. Another little bit of information, since one of the students talked about it. At the collegiate level, each team gets $2,000. We had originally planned to give high school students a budget as well. When I was doing focus groups with superintendents, principals, and teachers last summer, prior to beginning Invent2Prevent high school, they said, absolutely not. Do not consider giving these students budget. We do not have the structural mechanism at the high school level to absorb dollars. Where at the university level, particularly those university students, there's a budget director as part of the agency formation, so it's much easier. So what you see are programs without any financial resources. Now, the students do have the option of raising funds if they want to, and you will see that with one of the teams. But big difference between having no resources and then look what they're capable of doing. I mean, it's just, they can squeeze water out of a stone. It's pretty impressive. Are we good? Okay, please. Team number 2, Marysville High School from Marysville, Ohio. A round of applause.
One,
2,
4,
5.
We are
React 5.
5.
Hi, thank you so much for having us today. We are the Invent2Prevent from Marysville, Ohio. I am Parker Riley.
I'm Melissa Rodman.
Stevie Rajesh.
I'm Jake Schaefer.
And REACT stands for Respect, Equality, Acceptance, Communication, and Trust. And we landed on this acronym when we were discussing important ideas of healthy relationships that we admire and want to emulate in our community. So in our larger team, we decided to break it down into much smaller groups that we can all express our unique abilities. So in our given time frame, we have created a conversation starting board game, a partnership with our local elementary schools, as well as a pilot program. We have our social media accounts, as well as
an original logo, brand, and merchandise. We have our high school club and a fully functional website. So much like our team, Marysville, Ohio is broken up but still working together into one common goal. We have 6 elementary schools, 1 intermediate, 1 middle, and 4 high schools, concluding that 21.4% of all of Marysville's 26,080 residents are under 18 and attending one of these schools. So with our project, we intend to create some cohesiveness and unity within our web-like school system. Our mission as a team is to create a high school club that uses digital content, conversation starting prompts, and a creative board game to facilitate the protection of protective factors in the younger generation of our community. We intend to use multi-generational relationships to facilitate and kind of mentor these elementary school students to become knowledgeable and social high schoolers.
So our purpose really drives our mission and our aspirations for the future. Our purpose is to build a safer community. And by doing that, we will instill habits in elementary school students that encourage their social and emotional well-being. This will prevent instances of discrimination and hate and actions that are such as suicide, all types of youth violence, and other radical behaviors.
Invent2Prevent curriculum as a foundation for every aspect of our project. We also researched what makes amazing board games so amazing, like Candyland and Life, and we use these aspects in our board games. By interviewing our friends in siblings at our middle school, we discovered that students as young as 6th graders have threatened to use extreme violence. We also noticed frequent use of phrases such as "nobody likes her" or "everybody hates her." My sister's friend had to move away because she was harassed so much for her race and no longer felt safe in school. There is an undeniable lack of empathy and compassion in our schools, and we need to find a way to step in before these issues start. That's why 3rd and 4th graders are High Five's ideal audience. We can help these kids build connections before they reach our middle school. Our game is designed to build these connections and facilitate our mentoring sessions, as well as provide a EMS to use to expand our projects into other school districts. Our game is structured so that players can learn about how they're similar to and different from one another. It challenges players to analyze their behavior and recognize the impact they have on their peers. Throughout the game, players practice important skills of active listening and teamwork. And without even realizing it, they're being equipped with protective factors that help prevent violence.
Yeah, so we built a fully functional website. This acts as a social hub for parents and mentors alike. Using this, mentors and parents can look at dates and events and times, and also locations for our organization's events. As you can see that we've used colors that will interest high schoolers and children alike. We've also have pictures of our kids that we're mentoring and the team. We have our contact information, and the reason for the social hub that we built is really to pull any high schooler that may be feeling symptoms of social isolation and help them build a community which is great and is so large.
So the goal of our social media and branding team is to really appeal to all sorts of audiences. So we wanted to appeal to our elementary, who is our target audience, by using their favorite colors of pink and blue, but slightly altering the hues and tones so it appeals to high school students as well. Another method of us getting our ideas and message out there is through our social media pages. In the past 30 days, we have reached over 250 members of our secondary audience, which is young teenagers, adults who like to sort of research what we are doing in the elementary schools in our community. We also have been acknowledged by our local newspaper, and this is some of our merchandise that we have made. It is using all of our colors and our original logo, and we wanted to appeal to both parents, high school students, and elementary school students. So this is the slide where I was talking about our recognition in the Marysville newspaper. And these are kind of our statistics on our social media pages being spread throughout our secondary target audience. And these are just a few examples of what we post on our social medias. We have sort of project-based updates and friendly messages and encouraging ones that align with our React 5 principles. And another way that we are getting our message out there is we have been speaking at Board of Presentation meetings, or Board of Education meetings, rather, and we had very positive feedback. We just gave them a rundown of our curriculum and what we wanted to implement in our school system with our elementary school students. And we had several staff members come up to us and express interest in our project and working our social emotional learning curriculum into their everyday school learning. This is a quote from our Director of Leadership and Communication at Marysville Early College High School, and he just wanted to give us some good luck on our way here.
So for our focus group, we went to Raymond Elementary to test our board game on a group of 4 third graders for about 30 minutes. And while we were there, we talked to them about 2 key terms from our curriculum, which were empathy and active listening. Through empathy and active listening, the students were able to create a great discussion with each other, and they're able to figure out new ways that they can be similar and different from each other. We got a lot of great initial feedback from the students. They really enjoyed the game and they were really excited to play it more in the future. And also, the teacher that was on site watching us play the board game also gave great feedback, saying that we used the empathy and active listening in a great way to help the students find different aspects that they could use later on. And also that the game was a great way to build a quick relationship in the future.
While we continue to strive to improve our board game, we have other aspirations in areas such as our mentorship program. With our focus group, it was more of a pilot program for our mentorship program in the future. We planted the seed and are ready to watch it grow. When finding inspiration for our mentorship program, we looked at already existing mentorship programs in the areas surrounding Marysville. We saw the Big Brothers Big Sisters program that's nationally recognized, and a Build Up Our Youth program, which is at our local community research center where adults mentor teenagers. When we compared our mentorship program to the programs that already exist, we saw some aspects that made ours unique. This includes our accessibility to all students because of our central location at a school and direct communication with people that are really influential in these students' lives. This includes teachers, parents, coaches, and more. We have a really big emphasis in all of our activities in improving their social emotional health. And the high schoolers that are going to be the mentors and the students share a vibrant connection because they're in the same community. We thought that high schoolers were the best mentors because students will not feel like they are being asked for a right answer or interrogated. They're going to be honest and free with these high schoolers because of the closer age gap. To measure our effectiveness in our program, we're going to use the Likert scale in the form of a survey, and we're going to do it at the beginning of the program to gauge interest and throughout the program to measure effectiveness. We're going to use the SEL curriculum, which is social emotional learning curriculum, to structure our activities. And we are going to use a diversity of role models so that every student feels like they have someone to relate to. This all accomplishes the goal of achieving school connectedness, which is a preventative factor for actions such as youth violence, suicide, and
So from our focus group, we found that there was lots of areas of success and also areas of opportunity for improvement. So for one success, the students really enjoyed the game, like I said previously. They were really excited and they just could not wait to play it more. Also, the high schoolers were able to sit in and help direct questions that the students had, and maybe if they got stumped, and they're also able to connect 2 answers together to find similarities and differences between students. Also, the board design, which was made by Shannon, and the card design really intrigued the students, and that brought the interest for our game way up, and they were really excited. Now, of course, with all this great success that we had a few areas that we can improve on. First off, some students got a little restless towards the end. Of course, when you're a third grader and you're playing for 30 minutes, you're gonna get a little restless. So we think shortening the game to between 20 to 25 minutes will give enough time to have great discussion, but while we can still have not as much restlessness. Also, some answers were a little off topic. There was one student who really loved Minecraft, and that's all he wanted to talk about, which of course, Minecraft being able to play with your friends, we thought that we could include that in the friendship topic. And when we had that, we were able to improve our game by giving it more of like a student interest and ideas sort of feel.
Diving deeper into our vision for the future, we want our program to be as widespread as possible for as many years to come. We're going to accomplish this in a variety of ways. This includes creating a mentorship program club at our local high school, and we have a possibility of making more games under the React 5 principles. We're exploring an option to create an app that houses our current game and mental health resources so that it's accessible to everyone at any time. The game will be more family oriented because we do recognize the importance of that in-person leading the students to keep them on track. Also, we are going to visit as many schools as possible to implement this game, and that includes connecting to other school districts in the form of school boards, teachers, and more. We are also going to expand our social media platforms. We really want to reach that secondary audience to also bring awareness to our community. So we're going to expand to Facebook, Twitter, and other social media options. And with that being said, we are really optimistic about the future of our program, and we're really excited to see where it brings us. So we are High Five React. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. High Five React. Judges?
Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? Take off my mask, that might help. Great presentation. A quick question, as you think about scalability and sustainability in a model that could be used sort of more broadly, have you thought about potentially a digital aspect to this, like having a digital-based game? And could you talk a little bit more about that, how you see this program growing?
Absolutely. So we had talked about creating a digital game in order to help others connect online, although they're not going to be directly interacting with each other through maybe chatting or like online messaging necessarily to prevent cyberbullying. We are hoping to help create a sense of community, and if they're all like playing a similar game, or maybe like answers are reviewed and then sent out as well, people can feel like they're not alone.
Great presentation. Can you hear me okay? Great presentation. Really appreciate the details. As a father of a fourth grader, I'm intrigued and admire your bravery to interact with that age group. Can you talk a little bit more about what and how you decided which age group at the younger level would be the best target audience for you to focus your efforts on?
Absolutely. So we kind of looked widespread at that age group and in our local community. So basically, we have a web of elementary schools, about 6, to all feed into one. And we wanted to make sure that these students were equipped with the tools to be able to be in that environment and be in it successfully. Also, our school district is looking to implement some of this curriculum that we talked about in that 5th and 6th grade area. So we wanted to introduce that curriculum to them in a more like friendly manner before they do it in a more like serious manner.
Excellent. So I too have children and have a 3rd grader actually who is crazy about Fortnite, not Minecraft. And so I'd really like to see, you know, a little bit more. So can you tell me a little bit more about your projected idea of how to take this virtual beyond an app, but actually taking this board? I mean, this artistic capability, by the way, is very impressive. Who drew this? Oh my goodness, the quietest one. This is excellent, excellent. And so my second question will be, how did you choose the pictures? Because I pay attention to detail. And so really looking to the small fish and the world and painting and the cupcakes and the, so answers to both of those, please, would be great. And good job, guys.
Can you repeat the first part again? I didn't hear you.
Sure. So how to grow into the virtual age that we're in. I think you mentioned an app.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a little bit more about next year. What will this look like beyond the note cards that you had and kind of this hard copy board to take it to really appeal to the generation that we have now?
Well, the funding that we are getting will help us make an app, as you've heard, that will ask questions like the same ones in the card set. But since there isn't a mentor around to help with that, we hope the parents could really guide their children and help spark a conversation with them. So it's not really just about the children playing the game. It's more about the family that plays it together. So we don't really have any plans to expand farther than a game, a website, but the rest of our plans for the virtual world is really expanding our audience.
That's a good answer. Thank you. So to my second part, art side, what made you select these pictures? And, I think you have something here visually as well.
Okay, so I selected the pictures. I was looking especially at the game of life because I wanted it to be very fun and colorful and very playful, in that students feel like connected. And then when they're looking at the game, they're seeing these kids playing all around the board. So it kind of inspires them, and maybe I want to be like them, or this looks like a fun game because the kids on the board are having fun. And we wanted to pick colors that matched with our cards, with our branding. So it's really about implementing color and fun.
Good. And keeping your hands busy, which is why I like that for the Invent2Prevent. Do you see where I'm going with that? Right. So, so the painting, you might have something there. Okay. Last thing, and I'm sorry, judges, I'm not hogging the mic. This is my last question. Merchandising. So who came up with the idea to capitalize off of merchandising this? Okay, good. So the money that came from here is ideally generating the cards and the artwork there. Thank you so much. I think there's something there. Thank you. Good job, guys.
Wonderful presentation, and I love the art direction that you've chosen for this and the attention to detail when it comes to branding and marketing. As a PR major, I truly appreciate it. I just had a quick question about your process for recruiting high school mentors, if you could speak to that a bit.
Yeah, so for this Invent2Prevent project, it went through our staff at first, and then they compiled a list of students that they thought would be interested. And so what we did then is we had a meeting, and those of us who were interested wrote a little background bio, and then the staff members read over it and chose the ones who best fit the program. And I feel like that is what we would integrate into our program as well. Sort of teacher recommendations, staff kind of overseeing these sorts of bios that people write about themselves. And I think we would stick to actively and enrolled high school students to make that connection with elementary school students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. In terms of, same question I asked the last group, in terms of your experiences thus far, you finished the program. What were some of the barriers you encountered? And if you could go back to the beginning, what advice would you give yourselves as strategies to overcome those barriers?
Well, we were really we were really strict on time. We didn't have a lot of time to do stuff. I feel like if I could have gone back and told myself some advice, I would tell myself to maybe work on it a little bit more outside of class. Because personally, I feel like I kind of got a little busy and then I just didn't really have enough time to work on it. And then so I feel like if I would have been able to work on it more, I feel like we could have gone even farther with the board game and done more with going to more elementary schools. Because also we had a really hard time trying to contact the schools because our emails kept getting sent to the spam. So it took us, I think, the week before school ended to actually get to go to Raymond to actually do this. So I feel like if we would have had more time, then we would have been able to go to more schools and play the game and get more data about that stuff.
Great, thank you.
Hi, and ambitious where you want to go with this. So good luck. I really want to applaud you for the formative research that you did, the data to action, the looking at what made a successful board game, colors, getting feedback in your focus group and from the kids. How do you plan to continue to do that kind of data-informed decision-making as you move forward with this?
So basically, with our mentorship program, pilot program, now expanding, we're going to use the Likert scale, like in the form of a survey, to survey our students, our parents, our mentors, to see how they are reacting to the material that we have, asking questions on a scale to see what are they thinking. And we are also going to keep in contact with our school board and hopefully more school boards and teachers and see what their feedback is.
This is more of an opinion question, but what was your most intriguing or interesting research finding, and how did that inform your project, or what did that manifest itself in your project?
So I think we have discussed this many times. The most interesting thing that we found is that people are ready to take this and just implement it into their daily lives. So I think once we've started piquing interest at the beginning a little bit, that really fueled our whole inspiration for that we want to go so many different routes and have all these platforms with, you know, merch and board games and a mentorship program. Like, we saw people were interested, and so we wanted to take it even farther.
Kind of to follow up on that last point, you guys have a lot going on. How did you figure out your strategic direction that would incorporate merchandise, social media, connections to your local community, connections to newspapers, everything you're doing? How did you guys develop your strategy to put all that together?
So we have a large team of 15 people. They really organized all of this. We're just here to present it, but staff members, teachers really asked if we could incorporate our curriculum into their classrooms. And I really think that this is a community organization. It's not really just run by us. So.
Last question for me. So I'd like to know a little bit about your middle school plan. So I know you said elementary and middle school. I see the board game, I see those things. You know, what are you doing to really stimulate middle school students beyond mentorship, and then, you know, really get to the real purpose of inventing to prevent, right? Preventing violence, preventing all of the things that we're seeing here, domestic violent extremism. What are you doing in that critical puberty, prepubescent age? Thank you.
We're looking to step in and cut it off like right here, like before the negative behavior starts. We're looking to, by targeting elementary schoolers, stop it early. As far as middle schoolers, I think by going on social media, they'll be able to see some of the things that are going on, and hopefully we can generate excitement towards maybe them wanting to become a mentor in high school, and helping them kind of get involved in the community as well.
And judges, time for one more question, please.
Yeah, thank you. I heard you mention something about families playing the game together. Is there a parental engagement aspect to what you've started?
So for parental engagement, that would kind of take the place of the mentors if they're playing at home. And with the parental engagement, they can see what their children are saying, kind of direct the thoughts and actions. We have questions that are in 3 different categories: you, friends, and adults. And so I think some of these questions would engage adults, like, what's your favorite family tradition? And there's an abundance of different questions that can honestly interest any age group.
Great. With that, wraps up the Marysville High School presentation, and a round of applause, please. Great job, team. Feels good, doesn't it? Yes. And I'd like to acknowledge Jennifer Wanamaker as our faculty advisor to this team. Thank you. I'm happy to say we were introduced to Marysville High School from one of the DHS CP3 regional prevention coordinators, which is fantastic because those RPCs in the audience, if you do know, and I'm sure you do, high schools that would appreciate and welcome this program, well, here's an example of what happens. So we tried to make your world and your jobs easier, and it was just terrific to have the school. When I first, just to let you know the process, when I first made the introductory pitch to see if they'd like to participate, there were 9 people on the Zoom call. It's like, it was incredible. And Jennifer was one of the individuals, and these teachers invite DHS into the classroom as a guest. We're a guest. They are the gatekeeper. It's either they allow us in or they don't. I'm happy to say, virtually without exception, across America, teachers and principals and superintendents that do want to participate welcome this program, which is very exciting. It's encouraging because we really do need youth to be part of the solution in addressing targeted violence, hate, and terrorism. One thing to clarify as the rest of the team is miking up, we leave the objectives of the Invent2Prevent program deliberately broad to allow for various interpretations. So if you are reading the project brief, which is a 12 to 13 page document, I like to say it's the cookbook of the program. Easy to read, lots of white space, pictures, kind of lays out what the expectations are for the program. It says, we want you, student, to create an initiative, product, or tool to push back on targeted violence, hate, and extremism, period. That's it. We are not prescriptive because what happens in Marysville, I promise, is different than what's going to happen in Mount Pleasant, Tennessee, or Canyon City in Colorado. That's part of the magic of the program. It is not cookie cutter. And you've seen this with the previous 2 campaigns, and you will see it with the 3rd from Newburyport High School. So that is part of the magic because hate and violence is not a it's a broad problem, but the way it percolates in these communities is very different. I always like to say students are like a Geiger counter. They are an early warning system. They know where evil and hurt landscape is brewing and incubating before parents, for law enforcement, for teachers. So to get them to be part of the solution, it's really smart of CP3 to have all these early warning systems in the United States. How we doing? Okay, now click. I would like to welcome Newburyport High School and faculty member Tom Abrams and their EPIC campaign. A warm round of applause, please.
Imagine this. It's March 2020, COVID hit, and you're one of 200 sixth graders in Newburyport Public School. 2 weeks of vacation turn into 1.5 years of social isolation. Now that you're entering the 8th grade, finally, and the world is turning back around, you've noticed something. You've noticed that you don't stand up to the expectations you set for yourself, given that you've gotten all your information from social media platforms such as TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. Not only that, but you're isolated and you're lonely. You haven't found your friend group, and you haven't found your clique. And on top of that, you're falling behind in school given the immense limitations of virtual education. We noticed this, and we attacked this problem head on. And so our project was born. My name's Keenan.
I'm Leela.
I'm Lila. I'm Anna.
And I'm Izzy.
And this
Epic. Now let's take a look at Newburyport, the city in which these students live. Newburyport is a small city made up of about 20,000 people, 94.3% of whom identify as white. The median household income sits at about $110,000, making Newburyport a predominantly white, upper-class community. What's curious about the demographics of the 8th grade, however, is the fact that 81% of students identify as white, leaving room for a bit more racial diversity than the city as a whole. The reason we chose to zero in on the 8th graders as our target audience is largely due to the fact that 80% of disciplinary referrals made this year at the middle school were by the 8th grade. The Newburyport Public Schools middle school 8th grade was identified as the most vulnerable population likely to succumb to targeted violence due to their lack of protective factors. The data I'm about to present is from a 2019 Developmental Assets, a profile of our youth survey, and our internal SWIS, school-wide information system, discipline referral data. As Izzy previously mentioned, the 8th graders alone were responsible for 80% of disciplinary referrals from the middle school, grades 6 through 8. Only 52% of 8th graders identified their school environment as a caring environment. 33% of 8th graders reported spending 2 hours or more alone during the day, every day at school. 15% of 8th graders reported having hit someone once or more within the past month, overwhelmingly the largest percentage throughout the surveyed grades. And lastly, only 24% of 8th graders answered extremely important when asked the value of getting to know another person.
Because of this, EPIC was born. EPIC stands for 8 Promotes Interaction Community. Now keep in mind, EPIC is a 3-project campaign. Our first project was at the universal level. It was a social media campaign called Listen to Learn, which targeted the entire Newburyport community along the Newburyport Public School students. It was a platform designed for students to anonymously share stories where they felt isolated and ostracized in their community. But on the contrary, it also provided a place where students could feel explain where they felt welcome. Our second project was the EPIC Escape Room. Targeting specifically the 8th grade class, from the ground up, we built escape rooms inside the middle school, designed to help these students communicate and collaborate with their students. And finally, we targeted the group of the most vulnerable 8th grade students and created the EPIC Toughness Curriculum, which was a curriculum designed through reading assignments, writing assignments, and wilderness adventures to give these students protective factors.
Our universal campaign, Listen to Learn, aimed to share stories of times when Newburyport residents felt unwelcomed in our community. We also shared stories of times when students did feel welcomed in order to share their connectedness with others in hopes that they would feel more connected as well. The goal of our escape room is to place students in a situation where success is impossible without teamwork and unite with a common goal. Ultimately, these students will not only escape the escape room, but their preconceived notions of one another. Once we saw the extreme lack of protective factors and vulnerability within the 8th grade class, that's when our faculty advisor, Dr. Abrams, was able to dig into some of the more confidential data to allow us to hone in on a smaller group of students who would benefit most from our involvement. This is how our EPIC Toughness program was born, as we selected the 7 students focused on the following aggregate data. These 7 students were responsible for 17% of all 8th grade discipline referrals. 4 of these students came from unconventional homes in which they were raised either by a single parent or another relative. All 7 of these students struggled academically, and it was clear all 7 of these students could benefit from a program like this. The EPIC Toughness campaign was designed to foster a positive mindset which could potentially transfer to scholastic success. The students were given a series of writing, reading, and behavioral requirements. If they met all 3, they were to be taken to Mount Major, which is a popular hiking destination in New Hampshire. We used a number of different tactics in order to publicize EPIC. Initially, we wanted to use our social media platform, Instagram, in order to tell stories, but we ended up running into ethical concerns, which I'll discuss later. We ended up using our Instagram mostly to post updates and encourage participation from students in our community. A number of our group members have been featured in local articles in our town where they discussed our project as well as our involvement with Invent2Prevent. We were also featured in a digital forum alongside Invent2Prevent as well as DHS. Our epic escape room, which we created from the ground up, had a circled theme of saving Plum Island. Plum Island is a beach in our community in which we all love. We facilitated the movement of 200 eighth graders, 26 groups randomly assigned with minor tweaks made by the middle school principal to ensure safety. Each group consisted of 6 to 7 students. They were locked into a room with a time limit of 15 minutes and were asked to solve clues, puzzles, and challenges, which we specifically designed to enhance teamwork and cooperation.
The first group flew through the escape room. They were a prime example of how teamwork and collaboration works when solving a challenge. They completed it in just 5 minutes. The second group, however, was a bit more challenging. Originally, they entered the escape room and they were off in their own little corners, not collaborating. Finally, midway through, they came together and started working as a team. They escaped with a mere 14 minutes and 38 seconds, proving again how teamwork is key when solving challenges. You see, the escape room is so successful because it forces communication. Students want to succeed, so they'll communicate. And through the communication, they foster a place where they can meet friends and break down those social barriers they've built up so high.
For the Epic Toughness curriculum, the students were given a list of books, poems, and writing assignments, all of which had themes that truly spoke to them. These themes included things such as persevering through hardships, finding a deeper meaning in life, and asking for help when necessary. We actually consulted with Dr. Abrams on many of these literary pieces, including The Chain, which actually takes place at Plum Island, the beach that Leela mentioned earlier. The poem which best exemplifies these common themes which the students are truly able to relate to is the Japanese haiku, The Monkey's Raincoat. It translates to English in 2 short, simple lines. First winter's rain, even the monkey needs a raincoat. I interpreted this as meaning that when push comes to shove, we all need to ask for a little help. That's something that these students were not used to doing, largely due to the fact that they grew up in non-traditional homes. That's why it's so pivotal that this class was taught by a positive role model. Once the students completed all the requirements they were given, they were taken to Mount Major, where they were able to collaborate with each other in a setting outside the classroom that was more fun and communicative. As part of our measurement of success for social media, we were able to measure our Instagram analytics through the Instagram business account. We were able to track followers, post popularity, follower age range, etc., which allowed us to gear our content more towards our target audience. As part of our measurement of effectiveness for our Epic Escape Room, survey data shows that 75% of respondents rated the escape room 6 and up on a scale of 1 to 10 in its goal to create a cooperative environment. 26 out of 75, which is about 1/3 of students, said that the escape room helped them to get to know other students better. Moving on to Epic Toughness, which due to confidentiality reasons, we were not allowed to analyze the data, but Dr. Abrams was able to share the following data in the aggregate. Prior to this program, these 7 students were referred for disciplinary actions 3 times a day, and after this, it dropped to 0.77 times per day. One student in particular dropped from 0.4 to 0.1, and a group as a whole, academic passing grades increased drastically.
In terms of ways to improve, our biggest area of improvement for the escape room would be to create multiple solutions, as we only had one solution to the escape room and students were sharing information throughout the day and cheating, so we could easily avoid that.
And for social media, when we received the results to our anonymous survey, we realized that many of the answers included data that we realized that would allow others to identify who they were. So we decided that we were not going to publish any of the answers that we received.
Moving on to the strengths aspect of this project, however, most notably in the Epic Escape Room and Epic Toughness, is our strategic design and effective use of resources. Strategically, the escape room is designed with everything tangible. Everything is objective-based. You see, oftentimes in the classroom, objectives are unclear and vague. So when you're inside an escape room and you work together as a team and unlock a code and solve a new riddle, you're all together, and it's a very big sense of camaraderie, which is very hard to gain in the classroom. And with regards to epic toughness, it's strategically designed to build on those characteristics that students need to be successful in the classroom. It's basically school that doesn't feel like school. Often out in the classroom, you don't get to go hike a mountain for doing a good job. And then scalability and sustainability. Both the escape room and epic toughness have immense potential. The escape room can be scaled up to nearly any grade level as an icebreaker or beginning of the year activity. It can be used for staff development trainings or professional development days for for teachers and staff. The middle school principal loved the escape room so much that he told us he wanted to bring those escape rooms to every grade level in the middle school to help foster a more positive environment for those students. And we effective use of resources, scalability with epic toughness. So the only thing that we have to worry about is the administrative job, as that is the only position that needs to be filled. Everything else has already been filled for us. We have all the expeditions charted and all the reading and writing assignments ready to go.
And even though we're all headed off to university next year, this project is extremely easy to sustain, and we hope we have the opportunity to do so considering how effective it's proven to be. Now imagine this, you're now an 8th grade student entering your freshman year of high school. You're not feeling these feelings of inner turmoil and social isolation. Epic is a tool that can help us make a world like that possible. Thank you.
Fantastic job, Newburyport High School. And judges, questions, please.
Good job. Thank you. So one of my questions is, could you give me an example of one of the challenges that you had in the locked escape room?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my personal favorites that we developed was when you walk in the escape room, there's all these like cryptic messages all along the wall, right? And eventually you'll find a translator to solve those cryptic letters. And then once you do that as a team, you then have to put that into another translator that puts it into a numerical value to then unlock one of the first safes that gives you a riddle.
Great, thank you. First off, congratulations on your recent graduation, going off to college. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Early in your presentation, you had a lot of data from a survey. Maybe you went over that or I just missed it. Could you talk about that fundamental data you had that helped you kind of look at and design your program? Sorry, at the beginning of your presentation, you had some survey results where you described demographics of your community. You described kind of the target population, especially, it looked very in-depth. Can you talk a little bit more about that survey or where that data came from at the beginning of your presentation?
Yes, of course. So the 2019 Developmental Assets of Profile of Our Youth Survey is a longitudinal survey distributed by the district that's completed every year. However, we didn't have results from 2020 and 2021, obviously due to COVID. So those results from 2019 match up with the current 8th grade class. And from there, that survey covers lots of topics such as physical violence, drug abuse, sexual abuse, and everything that comes in between to get a gauge of the community and behavioral tendencies.
Yeah, just want to echo, really great presentation and love the use of data to help hone in on your target audience for this. For that third project, the Epic Toughness, can you talk a little bit more about sort of the participants that were identified? Were they excited about this? Were they willing to participate? What did you see from them in terms of at the beginning and in the end, willingness to participate in that program? Did you see sort of more buy-in from them as the program progressed?
So due to the fact that the 7 students identified in the Epic Toughness campaign, their statistics were so vulnerable that it would make them easily identified. So that was actually kept private from us, so I would say that Dr. Abrams did about 75% of the campaign. We did about 25%, consulting with him on books and poems. So all the students were made aware of was the fact that they had a leadership opportunity, something that could take them outside of a traditional class setting. And that was what truly kind of like interested them in it.
Yes, I love the escape room. I discovered that pre-COVID in. So question though, was there opportunity for the kids, who participated in the escape room? It sounds like there were like 200, to do some debriefing and talk about how they were successful, how they were not successful, lessons learned, some processing of that experience.
So we had a post-survey QR code directly outside of the escape room doors. So there were students that filled that out. Unfortunately, we didn't know that the middle school has a no phone policy, so they're not allowed to carry their phones around with them. But we asked the English teachers if they could send it out the next day during their class. We still got 25 respondents. But you've seen the quantitative data, qualitative data. I mean, we physically saw the students, the difference between by entering the room and exiting the room. You know, entering the room, some of them weren't excited to be there. They were kind of sluggish walking in. Exiting the room, they were high fives. They were smiling. It was a drastic difference for sure.
Okay, so it sounds like you have, a kind of thing built. You've got the ideas built, you've got everything going. So how would you use the money? How would it be poured into really growing this concept?
So how we would plan to use that money, I think first off, we would definitely build to expand the escape room to different grade levels. And we were really only working with 2 smaller, almost not closet spaces, but very small. So I think we would definitely like to expand to a bigger space, bring it to the different grade levels, bring it to the different communities. And even though we have the basic tools we used, I think we could definitely advance the technology to make it more and even more like cohesive and interactive experience. And then I think the rest of the money we would like to use for the Epic Toughness program and expand it beyond 7 students, because as students move through the middle school, you're still going to see students struggling behaviorally, and that's something that could provide meaning for a lot more students.
And then my last question, that's great. I like that. And then my last question is, I love your social media thing. I think there was like 452 subscribers or something that I noted, I think. So something like that. Maybe you're up to 453. So who is maintaining and how will you maintain that online presence through, the summers, through the breaks, through transitioning to college and the like?
Yeah, so hopefully, right now, myself and 2 other students are managing our account. And hopefully, when this project gets passed on to our next class, we'll have another social media group, because we split our class into groups. We'll have another social media group that can take over the Instagram account and keep it going for us.
Try that again. Okay. Same question I've asked the other 2 groups. I have to make sure I'm fair and ask all 3. So given the experience, you're getting ready to go off to new things. What were the challenges that you encountered, and what can you go back and tell yourselves at the beginning of the year? What would you do differently?
I think I can speak for all of us when I say that, when you choose to do an escape room, you choose to build something from the ground up, working together as a team is something we definitely grew doing, because originally, we all have different ideas, especially when you're developing 3 projects eventually. But I think like specifically the escape room, building that, we worked together as a team. We ended up working together as a team really, really well. But I really think that fostered a community of collaboration that I don't think any other project has really ever done. So I really think that helped us as well. Sorry, was there another part of the question as well? Or is that...
Real quick question. I think it piggybacks on what Tracy was asking to kick off. You were the team that developed the escape room challenges. So I think at the end you mentioned that there was interest in expanding that to other grade levels and other schools. Do you guys see this program as being one where you can recruit other kind of seniors, juniors or seniors to help develop those escape room challenges that are sort of age appropriate and kind of consider the different grade levels?
Yes, I think that's actually kind of our plan, is that we would love to bring up more than just the seniors. That's just kind of how it worked for this year, but we would definitely love to incorporate other grade levels because everyone's different ages and you can get a much larger a range of opinions, especially even getting freshman input who just went through the 8th grade. If we chose to stay focused on that, I think that would be extremely helpful, but that's just this year.
I'm loving this idea, and the attorney in me just has to put out there, please protect this intellectual capital because you've got something here, I think. So just, all right. I do have a question about, you know, the outset, and thank you for your transparency for making us aware, you know, of the area you're in, you know, what the demographics look like. So let's speak to that a little bit. Expanding beyond the demographics where you are, right? In the predominantly white area where you are, where folks are quite affluent or at least comfortable, what are your thoughts, or have you even looked into kind of changing some parts of the escape room to accommodate those other areas? Are you shopping it to other parts of your county maybe? What are your thoughts there? That'll be my last question. Good job, guys.
So I think if we were to move into a different county or a different city, we would have to take in, we would have to consider obviously what demographics that city has, and we can totally alter. So for us, Plum Island is a beach we all know, a beach we all love, so we centered it around that. So for example, if we went to another city, they had a park they loved, or a beach they loved, or whatever they wanted, we could center it and make that theme around that. So I think that it's very easy to apply it to different demographics, different cities. So I think that that would be very easy to do.
I'm also going to echo the comments about the geo and demographics that were shared. It's very helpful when you include those types of things in your presentation. My question is more for your first initiative, which is to listen to learn, if I'm not mistaken. How do you plan to expand that digital forum? I know you had difficulty with having to maintain anonymity as people were sharing really intimate stories, but what is your plan to expand that digital forum and to increase engagement from your target audiences through that?
So we hope to find a way that we could make our responses anonymous, either by combining responses, taking out the identifying factors in order to post them to the general public. Our original idea, we did want other people to see them in order to connect with each other. So if we were able to take out identifying factors, I think it would be an amazing thing. We also had an idea to make it sort of an art project to post around our town, and that we thought that that could bring people together as well.
Great, and judges, that'll be our last questions. Thank you. Round of applause. Great job.
Thank
Great job. Great. And I'll take the clicker, please, whoever has it. Good. Fantastic. Okay, judges, you have the unenviable position of being sequestered for approximately 15 minutes. And you can follow Brett and Jess and discuss the campaigns, go over scorecards, and ultimately come back with the rankings of third, second, and first place. So to our guests, pretty impressive, isn't it? First time ever, high school students who they've amazed us. And what's been really exciting is just it's almost like peeling back the onion. From when we start the program, they form themselves into a social and digital media agency with graphic design and social media and research and strategy, just like a real business. And then they ultimately, based upon the research, develop what you just saw. So it's a process that unfolds over either a full year or at high school level, unlike university, which is just 15 weeks. The high school initiative, Invent2Prevent, can occur over a full year, just that flexibility. It's really a completely different educational environment. So now I would like to have Ashley Bowers come up to the stage. Ashley is a senior program manager, preventing targeted violence for the McCain Institute of International Leadership. And she is going to share some exciting news about some of our programs, as well as have students from the Middlebury Institute of International Affairs and Howard University talk about the sustainment of their programs. You're welcome.
Right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. My name's Ashley Bowers. I'm the program manager for preventing targeted violence at the McCain Institute. While the judges are in deliberations, I am here to highlight 3 different areas of additional student accomplishments within the Invent2Prevent program. So to start us off, I'd like to feature 3 high school teams that received honorable mention from our finalist selection committees this year. So these teams competed this past year, and they were really close and really had great innovative ideas that we wanted to feature today. First, we have Sandia High School with Overflowing. The Overflowing podcast aims to prevent hate crime and targeted violence incidents between students, teachers, and administrators through students helping other students. Second, we have Lincoln High School with Ties, together in empathic storytelling. Ties is a story sharing campaign that seeks to build community connectedness among students and teachers suffering the impacts of loneliness, isolation, and lack of in-person interactions during the pandemic. Third, we have Mount Pleasant High School with Kindness Can Cure. Kindness Can Cure centers on kindness, anti-bullying strategies, and positive reinforcement through modeling positive interactions to prevent future instances of targeted violence. Congratulations, teams. As Tony mentioned, we are featuring presentations from our fall 2021 sustainment team. So I'm going to invite them to join me here on this side of the stage, and then we'll get them ready. While they're getting ready, next we would like to announce the 4 high school recipients of a $1,000 Invent2Prevent scholarship. DHS funded the scholarship program to encourage participation in targeted violence education programs, anything related from counterterrorism, security studies, and as you can tell, we even have different marketing classes and engineering classes that all contribute to this interdisciplinary field and can make a difference within this area. So the recipients are Obteen Pure Bazaar from Bob Jones High School. There you go. Kayla Garcia from Sandia High School. Landon Alexandra Mount from Newburyport High School. And Tanya Singh from Cambridge High School. Congratulations, high school recipients. To further the exceptional work undertaken by the top I2P collegiate teams, DHS Center for Prevention Programs and Partnerships funds a year-long sustainment program. This program provides funding to each selected team and is designed to help teams critically think through the next steps and challenges associated with scaling and sustaining their projects. By providing this opportunity, teams can consider establishing their concepts as long-term career investments that continue working to meet established needs in the prevention sphere, allowing for their unique ideas and voices to grow in scope and maturity. We are excited today to be joined by our two sustainment teams from the fall 2021 semester. The Peace Coalition and Diverting Hate will be providing short presentations highlighting their projects and plans for sustainment program. Just gonna check real quick. First up, we will be having the Peace Coalition.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Perfect.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Thomas Coleman.
My name is Kemi Karam, and we are the Peace
Peace
Coalition.
Coalition. Yes, very excited. All right, so just want to let you all know that the Peace Coalition is actually an acronym for the Policing Efforts and Community Engagement Coalition. Our goal is to increase social awareness of domestic terrorism, racial hatred bias, cultural literacy, and targeted violence incidents originating on U.S. soil by law enforcement affecting minority communities of color and other marginalized groups. We encourage these conversations through our social media presence, creating a board game, and hosting our very own podcast. Let's just talk about some of our key stakeholders. Our first stakeholder group was Howard University students. We intended to educate these students in their civil and criminal rights and interacting with law enforcement. And our second stakeholder group was law enforcement practitioners. We hope to uncover any implicit biases active within law enforcement. Next up is why the Peace Coalition is actually necessary. The Department of Defense made a report concluding that the U.S. is facing a threat from domestic extremists, particularly white supremacy and white nationalist ideologies. The Invent2Prevent project brief even mentioned this topic, and when we learned that no one had done a project focusing on it, we decided to step up and do the challenge. There have been 76 instances reported in which a member of law enforcement was identified as a member of extremist groups or movements. A recent example of this would be similar behavior done in the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, where 6 U.S. police officers were suspended after helping insurrectionists during the January 6th riot attacks on our nation's capital. Next, let's talk about some of our deliverables. First was the Peace Coalition podcast. As you see, that is me in the bottom right corner talking to Dr. Barden. Our goal was to conduct controversial but healthy conversations to explore the roots of these problems. We invited these thought leaders in subject matters such as unconscious bias, discrimination, white supremacy groups, infiltration into law enforcement, and more, to be guests on the podcast in hopes that we can not only educate listeners, but better understand what is already being done to combat extremism within law enforcement. Our guests range from a psychology professor and researcher, Dr. Barden, as seen below, to Metropolitan Police Department Chief of Staff Marvin Hayman. Our reel for our podcast reached 3,000 listens. Next up is Common Ground. Common Ground is a conversation-based board game with the intention to uncover any racial, implicit, or hate-based bias in players, and hopes to serve as a preventative measure to combat targeted violence.
Although some of our board members have went on to pursue their professional careers, their contributions have left a long-lasting impact on the Peace Coalition. Subsequently, after our final presentation, we began contacting current and former Howard affiliates for recruitment. Since then, we have finalized our board of directors and have the unique privilege of having notable faculty like Pulitzer Prize-winning author and investigative journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones and award-winning author and journalist Dr. Cece Patton on our board of advisors. In the process of reforming the Peace Coalition, our team has identified 3 primary areas of focus to ensure our success during the one-year sustainment program. Establishing organizational structure, local partnerships, and elevating brand awareness has proven to be the most important next steps as we begin to pivot and expand our reach and impact. We are elated to announce our decision to take our efforts beyond the classroom and incorporate the Peace Coalition as a nonprofit organization within the District of Columbia. At this time, we are working closely with our board to review plus ratify our articles of incorporation, create bylaws, and lastly, file for federal tax exempt status. In addition, we are seeking fall 2022 and spring 2023 interns for remote and in-person positions to evenly divide work and responsibilities throughout the team. Our second primary area of focus is establishing partnerships. We have a high interest in partnering with Greek letter organizations, the local NAACP chapter, other community-minded organizations within the DMV area. Further, we recognize that law enforcement agencies are an integral part of our mission and will continue to maintain contact with DCPS Chief of Staff Marvin Heyman as we make strides with the Peace Coalition. With our last primary area of focus, we have highlighted 4 different tactics: our website to show our brand's legitimacy, nurture our leads from social media, and establish an online community for our supporters. The next tactic is print materials, taking advantage of traditional media tactics to inform our key stakeholders, followed by rebranding in terms of color, typeface, and other palatable ways to disseminate our research, and developing unique visual assets to help our audience identify our work and our content easily.
We would also like to elevate our deliverables that I've already mentioned prior to. First, I'll talk a little bit more about the podcast. The podcast will be releasing a new season in the fall. We have plans to focus each season on certain research areas contributing to our topic. We also plan to start recording our sessions to post video content along with our podcast episodes, just so you get a holistic feel and approach to our conversations. Next up is a little bit rebranding of the Common Ground. We're trying a lot of new things upcoming. First, we want to try a new size for the game board. Students felt that the game could finish quickly when the time limit was enforced. We also discussed creating a prototype, a way for players to win the game, because right now it's more of a conversational-based game, and we want to keep that conversation based, but people are also competitive and they want to, have some way to actually win. And we also would like to do some mass production of the game as well. And that is all. We just want to thank everyone at the Invent2Prevent. The Peace Coalition would not be what it is if we weren't here and you guys weren't so supportive of us. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Kemi and Thomas. Next up, we will be joined by Diverting Hate. Hi, here we go. Good afternoon. We are Diverting Hate, the award-winning team from the fall 2021 Invent2Prevent competition. Thank you for having us here today, and thank you to the Peace Coalition. We are excited to tell you about our continued efforts to divert men away from dangerous, misogynistic online narratives. My name is Courtney Cano. This is my partner, Caitlin Tierney. Research continues to prove the connection of gender-based violence and extremist acts of mass violence. In a recent publication from Johns Hopkins Educational Fund to Stop Gun Violence, they found that 68% of mass shootings were predicated by acts of or history of domestic violence. These ongoing findings within the targeted violence sphere continue to motivate our mission. To address incel ideology and violent misogyny, we divert men away from hateful misogynistic narratives online by targeting men before they are radicalized.
So I'll also do this. We're both short. Hear me okay? Great. All right, so using a knowledge, attitude, behavior, theory of change model, our strategy is to intercept misogynistic hate speech and influence the men within this sphere with digital ads to a resource website, and from that resource website to trusted partners to sign up for community groups. Our desired outcome is a reduction of this hateful behavior online with the impact of increased safety for women and
consequently safety for men. So what this looks like, here's a small example from a user design within Twitter. We'd surface on a feed where toxic, hateful speech is showing up, give them options of other places to go, and then work with those partners to onboard them to their sites and off-ramp them from hateful speech. What fuels this are three separate components. So database and network analysis in order to effectively target our audience where they are, partnerships to divert them to, which require successful off-ramping from misogynistic radicalization to safer communities, as well as collaborating with experts in this space in order to inform our research and strategy. Lastly, strategic and ethical technology is really key to this being successful. So weaponizing the revenue models of these social platforms to surface resilience building paths, and in our fullest vision of this, actually influencing the way that these companies design their user experience and algorithms.
So since the end of the competition, the end of the fall 2020 Invent2Prevent competition, we have focused on three primary objectives for this year to get us started. The first of that is applying and seeking funding from federal sources and private and local institutions. And second is to advance our research and database and to really build out our theory of change. And then also building those key partnerships, as Caitlin mentioned, with social media companies, with experts in the field, and whatnot. So just to kind of take a look back at the last year since the competition, we spent quarter1 applying for Middlebury strategic funding from Middlebury College and our graduate program, the Middlebury Institute, as well as having a lot of conversations and interviews with experts in the field, like the Institute for Male Research. In quarter2, we applied for federal funding and we were awarded about $30,000 from Middlebury College to sustain our program and our initiative through the end of the year. And that's kind of where we're at right now, speaking with you. And as we move into quarter3 and quarter4, we're going to be planning and strategizing for that funding so that we can hit the ground running at the beginning of August with that funding and continue to implement our research.
All right, so just diving into a couple details around those key updates. So since you last saw us in February, we really focused on the strategy and vision for diverting hate and funding opportunities. So we spoke with experts at the Institute of Research on Male Supremacy, as well as GIFCT, to really understand the problem that we're focused on. And that resulted in a couple of strategic moves. So the first being we've split up our .org and the resource hub so we could have one place to house the research that we're finding within this space of misogynistic hate speech and gender-based violence. And then the resource hub to live as its own place where we'll be sending those individuals that we're diverting away from hate speech to this landing page to really make it a personalized experience for them. Then we also made this strategic move to only focus on community groups on that resource hub. After speaking with experts who focus on male supremacy, we learned that by surfacing mental health options, it's actually further projecting this narrative of victimhood, which lives within incel ideology, and that's not the direction we want to go. We want to create resiliency. And then lastly, as Courtney mentioned, we did apply for the Middlebury Provost Strategic Funds, and were awarded that funding, about $30,000. And then we spent a good chunk of time this year applying for federal funding to help sustain our project for the next 2 years. So in the short term, the next 6 months, what we'll be able to do with that money, we'll really be able to advance our research. So with the $30K we were awarded from Middlebury, we'll be able to have a team of 7, so ourselves and 1 lead researcher, as well as 4 researchers across Middlebury College and Institute with special skills in language, gender studies, and data analysis. Over the next 6 months, we'll be able to implement this work to advance the research that fuels our targeting and solidify our .org site as a go-to resource for misogynistic hate speech, and violence research. In the kind of long-term 2-year plan here, with additional funding, we'll be able to take our project to that next level over the next 2 years, using the research that we're doing currently and over the next 6 months. We're going to be focusing on building personalized, vetted, and trustworthy partners in the men's community and support group space. So when we're diverting these individuals to our hub, it's a personalized experience with partners we know we can trust and are actually going to make this off-ramping successful. Further, we're going to continue to research because the narratives, the ideologies, the key players are continually changing over time. And lastly, we'll be able to effectively target via digital ads to send to our hub and work with our partners to track that full conversion from digital ad to member of a men's community group. With our 5-year plan, we have a big vision for diverting hate. So through the success of our hub, partnerships, effective targeting, our vision is to no longer need to run ads, rather be able to influence these social media companies to design their algorithms and their user experience to divert individuals away from hateful content. Further, we hope to become field experts as it relates to the intersections of misogyny, violence, and extremism. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Caitlin and Courtney. All right, and I believe the judges have completed their deliberations, and I would like to welcome Tony back to the stage.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. Hello again. The first and second place finalists from the fall 2021 Invent2Prevent campaign. I would like to introduce the third place team. University of South Carolina is in the audience. Could you please stand? A round of applause for their Mean Wits campaign. They did a remarkable job indicating how the use of memes by white supremacists have been incredibly effective at impacting young adults. And it's just a wonderful campaign. So thank you for all the hard work. Okay. It is now the time. The judges have deliberated. You have the toughest job in the building. I would like to now introduce John Piccarelli, Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and John is also the Director of DHS CP3 to provide some comments, and John will be giving and announcing the rankings of our high school teams today. John?
Thank you, Tony. Before I announce the winners, I just wanted to say a few things. We started this project, Invent2Prevent, with the idea of engaging not just college students, but high school students as well. And as both the director of CP3, but also as a father of a high school student and a middle school student, I am absolutely astonished at what you all have accomplished. And I'm speaking not only to the 3 teams here at the finals, but all of the high school teams whom we've been getting constant updates from. You have done amazing work here. I was particularly taken by how many of the teams here today chose to work with students younger than they were, who saw and recognized that we need to work as early as possible, and that as students, you had an opportunity to speak to your younger peers in a way that maybe we can't as parents and as adults. That theme of connectedness that just keep coming through all of your projects as well was one that was very striking. And I applaud you all for taking that on. It's not an easy concept. We've all, as students at one time or another, gone through programs that have tried to teach us better and healthier relationships with one another. But it's never a difficult topic, and there's a reason why it keeps coming up over and over again. So the ways and the creative ways in which you all took on this challenge is really remarkable. Our team from Bob Jones High School in Alabama really took creativity and compassion to a very hard topic on school safety. Our team from Marysville High School and the High Five React, working those protective factors down to the 3rd and 4th grade level is really remarkable. And Newburyport High School and Project Epic, I just love the idea of an escape room. I just thought that was really innovative. I still don't understand escape rooms. I can't figure them out. I just want to go Hulk and go through a side wall and just be done with it. But I really do applaud you're taking that up. So without further ado, I'm ready to announce the winners of this year's Invent2Prevent high school competition. My understanding is I will announce them in reverse order.
Yes,
And the
build
teams,
suspense.
the teams will join us up here on the podium.
Yes, they will.
So when I call you, we will take time to recognize you and please come up and join us here. In 3rd place in this year's competition is the project BJ Connect from Bob Jones High School at Alabama.
Why don't you hold this? Great job. Fantastic. And to let everybody know, after John goes 3, 2, 1, I will provide some closing comments and then we will do photos with the winning teams with John. So great job, Bob Jones High School in Madison, Alabama. If you could just step over here for a
Okay.
moment, that'd be great. Thank you.
In 2nd place, Project Epic, Newburyport High School, Massachusetts.
Great job. Amazing. Feels good. Great. Fantastic. Step over here. And we're gonna have the final team.
Which means by the logic of deduction invested in me, we have in 1st place, Project High Five React, Marysville High School, Ohio.
Fantastic. Who wants to hold this? Okay, just everybody switch over. Great. John, you can stay right there a moment. Quick photo, Chris, and then I'm just going to provide some closing comments, and then we'll have a picture with Director Piccarelli. So I know I speak on behalf of the audience, teachers, CP3, you guys are amazing. As today's learners and tomorrow's leaders, what you have spent the last 6 months to almost a year doing is really impressive. Given the pain and agony that we as a nation have felt recently, you are a bright light. Thank you all and congratulations. And as I said earlier, it would not have happened without really enthusiastic, hardworking, committed faculty. Melinda, Jenny, and Tom, thank you. I would also like to recognize the other 22 teams that participated this semester that are not here, but did very impressive work, worked equally as hard, and I want to thank those students and those faculty. I'd like to thank the audience. Thank you for carving out precious time. I know you are as impressed as we are. This was a first ever event, which is very exciting. History has been made, which is fantastic. I'd like to thank our judges. I knew when it was taking a little longer than we had anticipated, it was not an easy selection. So again, thank you for taking on that unenviable position of having to make a decision. I also want to thank the team that made this happen. It was a wonderful collaboration between the McCain Institute, Brett Steele and her fantastic team of Ashley, Mackenzie, Marlena, Rachel, and Neil for their tireless efforts. And I would also like to thank the Invent2Prevent Adventure Partners team of Jordan, Jess, Livia, and Sean Farrell, who worked tirelessly and with great dedication over the last year to make this happen. That officially wraps up our premier inaugural high school Invent2Prevent competition. We welcome you to stay to watch photos or take pictures, but we also have refreshments. And we would love you to mingle and talk to the students. With that said, that concludes our event today, and thank you for being here. John, wherever you would like to go. Why don't you stand up? Oops, excuse me. Chris, how would you like to